Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RunIowa Podcast. I'm Rob Lindquist.
And I'm Dave Kading.
And this is episode 114 of the podcast. In this episode, Dave is going to review his Gore-Tex running shoes, and I am going to talk with Rik Zortman, the human Etch-A-Sketch.
That's awesome.
And it's a great episode. We're not going to have any of the weeks, no special segment after the interview today. We will wrap things up, though, so stick with us to the very end. And welcome to episode 114 of RunIowa. All right, welcome to the podcast, everybody. Glad you're with us again. And we are in a makeshift studio today.
Yes, we are.
So if we're a little out of whack, that's fine. Well, we're a little out of whack anyway.
Yeah, and that's true.
So we're in full swing, full spring swing. Our buddy Ryan is in the middle of a marathon week. He ran the Drake half marathon road race last week, and he's running Run Krandic. So shout out to them for their first Run Krandic run over in the Cedar Rapids area, Iowa City.
Yeah, it sounds like a cool thing to do.
So I was just talking to Ryan right before we came on air here, and he was telling me that the forecast looks great. The weather looks great, except the 40-mile-an-hour gusts coming from the south, which will be right in their faces.
Right, yeah.
So good luck to all you Krandic runners out there, and just remember, keep your head low and your shoulders low
Yep.
and your body low, and get through that wind, and you'll be fine. Of course, I'm saying that, and I'm not running it.
Yes.
So you're going to give us a review today on some new shoes you got. What'd you call them again? I apologize.
They're a waterproof Salomon XA Enduro trail running shoe.
Okay.
And
the brand is?
Solomon.
I'm sorry.
Nope, that's right.
Okay.
So since I'm going to be going to Iceland in June, and we'll be running a midnight half there, night of the midnight sun on the summer solstice, so 24 hours of sunlight in Iceland.
Right.
So we're going to run a midnight half marathon, my wife and I. And it rains all the time in Iceland, and I don't want to pack like 10 pairs of shoes for the trip.
Yeah.
I was just looking online, like if I could find a pair of waterproof running shoes, it'd be pretty cool. Anyway, so I was at Sierra Trading Post on their online site, and they had a pair of Solomon's. These are closeout shoes that they had, and so I picked up a pair, and I actually worn them out in the rain already.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, one morning when we had that good April snow and rain.
Winter 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ryan and I ran, and I wore them, and really liked them. They are waterproof.
Okay.
So my feet stayed dry. They're comfortable. The material, it's the ClimaShield waterproof material that they use in their shoes. It's breathable, so my feet didn't sweat. And they were comfortable. They really were. Now, we didn't run on a trail, so they're a little stiff for running on concrete, and the insoles aren't overly padded. But I have a different pair of insoles that I'm going to put in those shoes.
And are they? I'm going to interrupt. Are they the Cadence insoles, or are they different?
No, they're. My wife picked some. We should contact them and talk to them, because it was a running store that has their own line of insoles.
Oh, interesting.
And so she found them online and ordered them, and I haven't used them yet. So I want to put those in and do. I've worn them twice now on some mid-distance runs, 6-mile runs, and they've been really comfortable and do the job. They're kind of interesting.
So you said they're trail specific though.
Yes, they are.
And so
but
they don't. Stiffer.
Yeah.
Are they heavier?
No, they're not. Okay. They're a lightweight trail shoe, so they're a little firm or stiff. But the tread on them is not overly aggressive. Like I have a few pair of trail shoes, and I'm pulling up the picture so Rob can look at it. It's not like
almost like a new golf shoe.
Yeah, it's not overly aggressive, and so it's not like it picks up a lot of dirt and mud. Right. So it's a fairly comfortable shoe. The interesting part,
I'm going to explain real quick what I said. The golf shoe, the new style of golf shoes, they don't have the spikes necessarily. Right. They have the molded kind of rivets or divots.
Kind of like when I was a kid back in the 80s, and everybody went to buying turf shoes for
what
football.
What are the 80s?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
We all had like turf shoes for football.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so they're kind of that waffled bottom, or like the original Nike shoes when he made them with the waffle iron. They kind of have that bottom. But they have a little booty that's inside the shoe, and again, looking at it, and it fits snug, but it's not abrasive or anything. So it's kind of a pain to put on.
Oh, nice.
Because you got to put your foot in there and manipulate the booty around your foot. But
do you wear socks with them still?
I do.
Okay.
I always wear socks. I don't like.
I'm saying that today. I'm not wearing socks.
But no, they were real good. I'd highly recommend it, especially if
price.
They were $69 down from $150 is what their retail price is.
Oh, nice. And you found them online at...
Yep, Sierra Trading Post.
Okay.
And they have a few left in black, and then I have the blue and orange.
Oh, nice.
I think they look pretty sharp, and they were comfortable. And
it's kind of like the old Denver Broncos blue and orange.
Yeah, it is. Or as my wife said, you bought some Florida Gator shoes.
Yeah, there you go.
And the other nice thing is they have quick release and tie laces. So it's just got one of those little plastic clips, and you pull it snug.
Yep.
So you can adjust the tension on them. So like if you're running, and if you would be running a long trail run, and your feet start to swell a little, you can just loosen the tension by pulling on the clip, and and better than having to stop and tie your shoes and do all that stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
So I give them an A.
Hey, there you go. At our official grading scale that changes every time we do a review.
Absolutely.
This one's an A. I like it. 4 out of 5 burritos.
Yes.
Cool. Check them out online. We'll have a link to the Sierra Trading Post link on our website at RunIowa.
I also have to give Sierra Trading Post a little plug. They are now opening some demo stores, and one opened up in our area in Omaha.
Oh, nice.
And which is awesome. And I was over there the other day. So those of you who are on the western side of Iowa or eastern Nebraska, that there is now a Sierra Trading Post store out on 134th and Maple.
Awesome.
Check it out, man. It's full of stuff.
I wanted to change gears a little bit before we get into our interview and talk just a little bit about a couple things that are coming up, I think. Well, first thing is the Iowa State track club runner, or running club runner, that got 23rd at Boston.
Yep.
So I don't know if you saw that or not. I'm not gonna go into detail, but what a cool story.
Yes.
And if you didn't see that, well, the whole Boston this year was a cool story.
Amazing. So
with
we'll
Desi
talk about that.
So we'll talk about that at a later time. And then the other piece, oh no, I forgot. I had it written down and I didn't bring it with us. That's all right. I'll remember it later.
Yeah.
So, okay. So switching gears for the third time. I had a conversation last week. Oh no, I remember. Okay. So I'm coming. This is live radio, folks, on your internet web podcast that we could edit, but we don't. Drake Relays this week officially started. Today is Thursday.
Yep.
And so they officially started yesterday with the heptathlon and decathlon events starting. And then they had their road races last week, and we mentioned Ryan ran the half marathon last weekend. So Drake Relays, Bolden is in charge of it, and he's a great guy. He's been a great promoter of the event. Yep. And if you're able to get to Drake and just watch some of those kids, we have some high schoolers that are heading down there today, Thursday. And so it's a great event for high schoolers and for those elite athletes. I saw yesterday Edward Kemboy, former Iowa State Cyclone, NCAA champion and podcast guest, will also be back. Forgot her name. One of the speakers at the event is an Iowa State grad, and I'm drawing a blank. Lisa Ull.
Yes.
She's there, and tons of people are there. So if you love the track scene and you just like watching good runners run, head out to the Drake Relays.
Absolutely.
So that not a paid endorsement. I'm just telling you to go do it. So, okay. Fifth time, switching gears. I had an opportunity last week to talk with Rik Zortman. You may know the name from Runner's World, or in Iowa, a lot of our local media stations picked him up. Des Moines Register over here on the west side, Omaha World Herald picked him up. A couple of our local TV stations and Des Moines stations picked him up as well. He's currently he is getting filmed right now by ESPN. They're going to do a feature on him as well. He mentions this in our talk as well. And the reason he's getting the notoriety he is because he's become the human Etch-A-Sketch. His son passed away in 2009 at 3 years old with pediatric cancer.
Right.
And to memorialize his son and remember his son, he went for a run and wrote out his name in the streets of Avoca, Iowa.
Right.
And it might have been Harlan for the first one. I don't remember offhand. But he wrote out his son's name, Armstrong. And then it just kind of caught on, and he's been doing it now for a couple years, a few months. This September of 2017 is when he started.
Yep.
And so it was. I will tell you that as a father, it was a a tough conversation to get started. But Rik is such a great speaker, and he has a great story to tell, and he's really helping a lot of people, and it's an amazing thing that he's doing. So enjoy the conversation with Rik Zortman. I did get all of his contact information at the end of our talk. It's a little bit longer than our normal interview. That's why we're going to do just that today instead of...
That's why you don't get to listen to us.
Yeah, that's why you're not going to listen to us anymore, which you're probably thankful for. All of his contact information is at the end, and then we'll join you guys back up after we talk with Rik.
Sounds great.
Okay, enjoy, and we'll be back right after this. And on the line with us now is Rik Zortman. He's from Avoca, Iowa, the Human Etch-A-Sketch. Rik, how you doing today?
I am doing great. Yourself?
Not too bad. You know, we were just talking just a second ago off air about the weather again, winter number 5, and how crazy it is just right now in this spring. And
yeah, it's just amazing how you can go from 70 degrees to 30, and it's like, will it just stop snowing?
I do like, I don't know if you see this, sorry, I'm getting off track already, we haven't even started, but I like seeing the things like on social media where people are saying, you know, oh, only in Iowa, only in Nebraska. I'm like, no, this is pretty much everywhere right now. It's
it's crazy because, like, I was in Kansas last week, and they're like, for a race, and they were like, this only happens in Kansas. I'm like, no.
Well, let's talk a little bit. People might have heard your name before from a recent Runner's World article that included you and your childhood cancer awareness initiative that you're kind of doing right now. It was also in local media in Des Moines Register, Omaha World Herald. We're kind of on the west side here, so I saw you on our local TV stations here. On the west side, WOWT showed it. Let's talk a little bit about that and what you do that kind of got you some notoriety.
Okay, so pretty much how it all started was my son had cancer back in 2008, and I was basically stationed overseas and got the phone call from my then wife at the time, and that he had a seizure. I was like, okay, because I didn't know really what to expect because seizures never really were a thing in our family. So so I was like, okay, I will get some emergency leave. And so I flew back and got back on Monday, and he was just going in for surgery. And so he comes out of surgery, and the doctor comes and goes, I don't know how to tell you this, but your son's got a tumor. It's cancerous tumor. We don't know really what it is. It's a grade 4. We're going to call it glioblastoma, but it's 4 different types of brain cancer. So it's like, oh, okay. So it's like, well, what do you do? So pretty much what we tried to do is we tried to take him. We took him to Omaha for a little bit, and my wife Lindsay at the time, she decided that she wanted to do a better type of coverage. So she wanted a second opinion. So she took Armstrong down to Houston to MD Anderson, and then I followed a couple days later when I came back for good in late December. And we were down there, and we were hoping for the best, and the doctor pulls us in and says, here's the thing. You only got 3 to 6 months with your son. And he was an older gentleman, so he pretty much knew what he was talking about. So he was like, so we would get it if you want to go home. Just let us know what you want. So Lindsay and I decided that we were going to come back to Omaha and try and do what we could for Armstrong. So we tried radiation, we tried chemo. It just was a losing cause, and he passed away April 9th of 2009. And so for the next couple of weeks, I didn't know, what we were going to do. I didn't have a job back then. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so a local 5K was in town. They were having a 5K, and they're like, we would like it if you were to come, and run this, because we would like the proceeds to go towards Armstrong. And I was like, Okay, so I hadn't done any training, no running. I thought running at the time was, it's just kind of boring. It's like,
Sure.
what do you do? You go outside and run, and, blah, blah, blah. So, so the 5K that I did, I actually ran most of it. It was like almost 90% of it I ran, and I didn't even do any training for it or anything. I think it was just pure emotion that got me through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought about it. I was like, I wonder if I could use running as my way to remember Armstrong by. And so that's kind of what I did. And so I signed up for my first half marathon, which was Rock the Parkway in 2010, Kansas City, which happened to be their first year of the race.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, okay, so I'll do that. And when I got done with that race, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm never going to do that again. And then a couple of days later, I'm like, that really wasn't that bad. I could probably do it again. So the years went by. I've ran 2 full marathons, both at the Des Moines, one in Des Moines, 2011 and 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally, I would run a little bit. I really didn't do much training, but I really started picking it up in like 2016, 2017, and actually used the app Map My Run to actually spell out letters and kind of propose to my wife, Kelly, at the time. And so I was like, I got the letters down, no big deal. And I would post my routes. And in 2017, last year, someone actually commented that my routes were boring. So I really didn't know how to take that. So I was like, okay. And I kind of would mix it up. And I was like, okay. So the thought came to me, okay, I'm going to, on July 4th, I spelled out #USA.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, maybe I can write names. So I started sketching names and positive words, because you always see stories of people that are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, okay, I'm going to maybe not do a name today, might do a positive word or a team or a group or whatever. And so I did that. Well, the first part of September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew right away my first name was going to be Armstrong. And so I went out and ran Armstrong, and then underneath it, I ran Spirit. It was all one run, and it was like almost 9 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided, it came to me while I was running that I was going to do this for other kids this month. So I put it out there. I was like, I'm going to put this out. I'm going to run names this month for childhood cancer. Those that would like to submit a name, you're more than welcome to. If you don't, I totally get it. You don't have to. So I went out and ran Tyler and Ava on the 2nd of September.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back to log it in, because what I do is I'll post it on Facebook and the social media,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll tag all those with the same name so they see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to look, and I had over 40 requests of names to be ran.
Wow.
In September. And so I was like, okay, I could possibly get this done by mid-September. Maybe I'll get a few more names, and we'll kind of finish with September and just kind of go from there. So the names started growing, and with the help of 3 others, we did 100 plus names just in the month of September.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so it was like, and I still had names at the end of the month. I still had more names to do. So I was like, okay, well, we'll stretch this out to October. And then November came, and then December came, and now we're midway through April, and I still have names. And to this day, I've done 371 names in probably just about 9 months. And so most of the people that I tag, they're like, thanks for the shout out.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. You don't know what this means. And most of the times I don't, because I go and run the name for somebody that's submitted it. And then what we do is I post it, and then they share it with whoever they got the name from. And then I move on to the next name.
Sure.
And so when ESPN came to town, because they wanted to do a feature,
mm-hmm.
They actually had me run the name and actually submit it, actually talk to a couple and then submit the name to them. And I had never done that before. And
Sure.
So to be able to do that for people and actually see their reaction meant a lot to me because that was just past name 300. And so since then, I've presented names to two different people. So I've done it actually to 3 different people, and I've seen their emotions, and it means a lot to me because I had a young lady that lives a town away east of here. Her son passed away in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had came to me and she's like, I would really like to run a name with you. And I'm like, okay, let me know what the name is. And she told me the name, and I'm like, okay, we're going to run Jace because that's the name that you wanted to run. And I said, well, here's the deal. When we run one name, we've got to come back because we've got to run the second name to get back to where we parked.
Sure.
And so she's like, okay, no problem. I said, I'm not going to tell you the second name, but we're going to go out and we're going to run the second name, and then I'm going to present it after we're done running. So we ran the second name, and I didn't have it written down. I pretty much did it by memory because I've done so many, I know kind of where to break, where to go from there.
Right.
So what had happened was there's an app out there where they can relive your run and show you where you ran and the name that you ran. Pretty much that's what it does. It pretty much relives your run. And so after the second run, we're walking back to the vehicle, and I said, do you want to see what we just ran? And she goes, yeah, absolutely. Well, lo and behold, she saw the first letter, she saw the second letter, and she finally realized that we had just ran her son. And so she started crying. I started, of course, crying. And I'm like, this is the kind of emotion that I get when I go and run names and I present them, because you don't see that emotion. It's like you go out, you go and run the name, you present it on Facebook, you don't get the human element of what it does for them. And then they say, you don't see the human emotion. Well, I've seen it a couple times, and it just floors me because of just the name itself. Like, I have to figure out what way I want to do it. Like, I either run it horizontally or I run it diagonally. And some letters combined, they can't go diagonally, so they have to go horizontally. Like with an L and an I can't really do that diagonally because it would look like a C and an I. And so I have to do it horizontally. So more times than not, when you see me out running, I'm either going to have a little notebook in my hand or a piece of paper or something in my hand that has the sketch on it. So that way I know where to break, where to pause, and so to make the name as best as I can for whoever's requested it.
So logistically speaking, then Avoca is pretty, you've got mapped out in your head. And I read in one of the articles that you go to Harlan for some of the longer names and words that you use.
That's correct.
Are the running communities pretty supportive? They see you out there supporting you that way, saying hi?
And I would say probably 90% of my runs have either been in Avoca or in Harlan. And sometimes the people in Harlan, they'll honk or they'll wave to me. Some people still don't know what I do. They see some guy running, and they're just completely like, they just drive past. But but most of the time I try and do it. Because in Harlan, I could do almost up to 10 letters. Okay. Maybe 11 or 12. It also depends on what the name is. Like I did when Armstrong passed away in 2009. I reran his name on April 9th. And then I came around and scripted the word inspiration. So that was 11 letters, but I also had help because I had 3 eyes. Sure. So that's kind of an easy one to do. So it also depends on the name and what it's scripted out. So I have done names in like 15 to 20 different cities, whether it's been one name or a few names. And so my plan is to keep doing this, what I'm doing. I've got a plan this Friday where we are walking the name of a little girl in Olathe, Kansas. We teamed up with the Garmin Marathon. We teamed up with Gary Gribbles in the Kansas, Missouri network. And we've teamed up where we're going to walk the little girl's name. And then we're going to do something afterwards to show the family, hey, this is what I do. This is, we just want to present it to the family. And so it's going to mean a lot to do it there. And then whenever I get the chance, I'm just going to try and do it in different cities, and it just depends on their layout.
Mm-hmm.
So, Atlantic, which is 20 miles east, I haven't ran there yet, but I do see that they've got a long area there where I could also do names there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also an option. So I just try and make it as logistically and as clear as possible, so that way you can see the name without having to go, now what's that say?
Sure.
So
how much time of planning does it normally take? I guess now you're more experienced, it might be a little quicker to plan a run.
It is. Usually when I'm given a name, I really don't go in any order. I just kind of pick, like if it's like cold and drizzly like it is today, I'll run a treadmill today, obviously, because I really don't have a lot of time to go out and do it, because I've had some errands I have to get done. But
sure.
But like if it's like chilly kind of like this, I'll run in Avoca. But if it's like a little bit warmer, I'll drive to Harlan and be like, okay, let's knock out 2 names here and see what we can do, because each name has a story. And so on my public page, people that I run for, they're more than welcome to post a picture of their child under the name, and then like a brief story of their battle, whether they've passed away or they're still fighting or they've beaten it. They're more than welcome to say, hey, here's my story. So that way, if somebody else has to go through it, they're like, okay, you just went through this. What can I expect? What do I need to do to go through this? And what kind of questions do I need to ask? And so that's one way for me to put it out there, so that way people can help each other.
Sure. I don't want to make a light comparison, but the running community and then the parents of children with cancer community are probably 2 very, very strong communities together. How do you see those 2 connections, I guess, or those 2 communities connected?
Well, the cancer community, it's tough, because it's a fraternity that nobody wants to be in, because right. You have a child that you've either lost to cancer, or you've had to go through and try and help them beat cancer. And it's a struggle, because you don't know what to expect. You don't know how much dosage is going, when the hospital gives you, how much is that going to help with a tumor, wherever it's at. And so they are very supportive in one another, because if like the parent that had one pass away in 2005, she hopped on board when Armstrong was sick. And then when Armstrong passed away, then I started getting stories of people going through it, a couple years later. So we try to support one another. And that's kind of the same thing you get with the running community. It's like, okay, you have many different Facebook running groups all over the world, and you see their patterns, and then you see kind of what I do, and I just like, it's just weird that I can go out and sketch a name and then just go out and do it, and people say, just keep doing what you're doing. And it means a lot to me, because at first it was just like, okay, it was just a way just to go out and help others and just run names. And now it's to the point where it's been like, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, we look forward to your posts every day. And it's just like, okay. And so you don't really script it out as to what you're going to do each day. Like, okay, like on September 11th, I woke up and was like, I'm not doing names today. I'm going to do a tribute to 9/11. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was scrolling through Twitter, and I was like, okay, someone put never forget. So I went out and sketched never forget. And I had a lot of people comment on where they were and what that meant to them. So to be able to go out and do it, and just to be able to surprise other people and be like, okay, today it wasn't a name. Today it was this word, or today it was a name, and I tagged like 800 people in it. They're like, thanks for the shout out. Thanks for doing what you do. Is there anything, where can we submit a name? And I'm like, you can submit a name to Twitter, you can submit a name to Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all 3. I've got a personal website where if people don't want to do that and they want to submit it privately with a story, they can do that as well. And so it means a lot to be able to have that there and be like, okay, here's my notebook, here's my journal, here's what I've done on Facebook. And with 371 names, and someone gives you a name, you're like, have I done it yet? Have I not? And so I just hashtag it on Facebook. And if I don't see it, that means I haven't ran it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have ran it and someone asks for it, then I can just pull it up right away and be like, here's the name. And they're like, you've ran that already? And I'm like, well, I have ran 371 names before. So,
Sure.
And this one just happens to be one of them. So to be able to have that out there and to help others, I mean, most of the time I don't see the fact of, what it does, but there's been a few times where I have, and it's more personal to be able to talk to a complete stranger, ask them if I can run for their son or daughter, go out and then come back and present it to them and see their reaction. So come this Friday when we do the function in Olathe,
Mm-hmm.
the dad already knows about it. He's all on board. The parents are all on board. They're just not going to tell her because she was just told she was cancer free in November.
Oh, good.
And at 4 years old, she just got her first haircut.
Sure.
And this was a story I think that was given to me by my sister. She's like, you might want to check this out. I checked it out. And I was like, well, I am doing a race down there. Maybe we can figure something out. So with the help of the couple groups, we got things going. So we're hoping to have a great turnout. It's supposed to be somewhat decent weather, but it just means a lot to me to be able to go out and just do this for others as far as running their name and just seeing their reaction. I mean, sometimes you get a great name where everybody's got the name,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's such an uncommon name that you don't even know how to pronounce it. So
Sure.
I actually had a name I've had two names. One was given to me from New Zealand and one was given to me from Australia. And so it was like, yeah, I can do that.
That
And they're like, very cool.
Yeah, that's kind of the next step, right? Is how far away, you just said those two countries, obviously, but is this a worldwide thing now where you're getting requests from everywhere, and how do you handle that?
Well, what happens is if they give me a name, sometimes I won't even know where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, I'll tag you in it. And if I do some research, I'll be like, okay. So yeah, the request that came from New Zealand, they actually physically told me, they're like, we live in New Zealand. We just caught your story in the Runner's World here.
Yep. And
it was funny because they sent me the picture of it, and they obviously changed miles to kilometers.
Oh,
and,
sure.
it was kind of funny just to read it and be like, and all the different spelling because, they spell things differently.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of cool to see. So to be able to do that for them, and no matter where they're from, whether it's New Zealand or Europe or India or for that matter, anywhere. So if they reach out to me and they're like, have you done this name? And if not, can you do it? And I've done a name with hyphenated name before. I've done a name with, up to 10 letters. I've done names with 2 letters, which take maybe 10 minutes.
Sure.
And so the one that we're doing on Friday night, this one will be the first one I've done in a parking lot.
Oh, okay.
So there's always the ones out there where I've never done before, and they're like, okay, we'll do this one because this one will be in the parking lot. So because we want to get a lot of people together, and even though we're not going to be able to run it since it's in a parking lot, we're going to walk it, and it's only going to take like 10 minutes tops, but the meaning behind it is what matters the most.
Before we get into how people can contact you, and you mentioned the social media and stuff like that, is there one thing that you remember about Armstrong or something that you really hold on to that makes this, it's hard to put in words. I have 3 kids myself, and I couldn't imagine what you're going through. And how did you translate the grief you had into your running, and the one thing that really you hold on to?
The one thing I really hold on to with Armstrong was the fact that I always knew he loved to run.
Mm.
And all the pictures that I saw, because I was stationed overseas for a while while he was here with his mom and with his siblings. And so what I hold on to the most is the fact that I see his face and I see him, running with them. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to see that and be like, okay, that's the image I have in my head for when I go out and run. And so sometimes when people give me a name and they give me a face and they're like, here's so-and-so, here's Joseph, or here's Tyler, or here's Ava, here's a picture so you can visually see it in your brain. Mm-hmm. While you're running it, and you're just hoping to make it look as great as you can so that way the parents are thankful for seeing that. And sometimes it's like somebody asked me, like, how do you get the names since it's confidentiality? And I'm like, I have people that, submit stories for your daughter. This is what you did for your son. And so it just means a lot to me just to be able to do that and to be able to just hear others say, keep doing what you're doing. And so I've ran 371 names, and I've only repeated a name 5 different times. And the only reason why I've done it 5 different times, I did Armstrong twice because it was the first part of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and then I ran it solo. And then there was a couple where I ran one, and then I actually walked one after I'd found out that the child had passed away. And so it's kind of tough just to hear stories like when you go out and you run them for them, and you're hoping that they do the best, and then you find out, a week or a month or a couple months later that they've, passed on. And so it's kind of tough. And so people, they fight as long as they can. They try to do the best they can. That's kind of what we did. We tried to do the best that we could for Armstrong, and it just wasn't enough. And so I think it's weird because with tragedies, sometimes the best things come out of tragedies, and it's hard to see what great thing comes out of it when you're going through the tragedy. And it's like, it just happened. And it's like, I really don't want to do anything. He just passed away. What am I going to do? And so running has basically been my savior. And obviously it's been working great things for me just because of the fact of not only is it keeping me healthy, it's keeping Armstrong's memory alive, but it's also the fact of it's helping other people.
Sure. What impact do you think you have on the greater community because of doing this? You've mentioned a couple things here and there, but if you could boil it down to like 2 or 3 sentences, what impact do you think you've had?
I would think I have a bigger impact than I think I've got, because just not seeing the effects of what I do for others, and just knowing what I'm doing for others is actually helping out means a lot to me. The fact of just running here in town and people saying, they actually stop and they're like, we know we appreciate what you do, and we just want you to know, we just want you to keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
And that's community where it's like, you don't really see them out, but when they drive by, they'll either honk or they'll actually pull up and they'll be like, okay, so what name are you doing today? Or, we really don't know what name you're doing today, but we just want you to know we appreciate everything that you've done, and we just want you to keep doing what you're doing. And so it just means a lot to me to be able to hear that, knowing I'm making a difference. Even though the difference I'm making may not mean a lot to me, it means a lot to others that I'm running for.
I obviously it's very commendable. So great job for helping out other families and bringing people together. And you're telling stories by running through, that might not have been heard otherwise. And to those families, it's obviously it's a big deal. It is a big deal. And so thank you for doing what you're doing. What's next for Rik Zortman after running all of the names, and that you think you finally come to an end, and all of a sudden, do you have anything in mind, or are you just going to do this as long as possible?
Well, I'm going to try and do this as long as possible, for as long as God gives me the right to be able to do this. The thing is that I am getting ready to go overseas, and people have asked me, like, how are you going to sketch overseas? And I have a plan for that, and
Sure.
It's going to be it's a different plan where it's like, well, I'm going to run the letters and before I go, so that way I know what mileage each letter is. And then, so let's say someone gives me the name of David. Well, I know David, each letter adds up to like 3.2 miles. So what my plan is to run 3.2 miles and then put all the letters together in one picture.
Gotcha.
It's not going to look like, the human Etch-A-Sketch like you've seen before, where you see point A and then point B. You'll just see the letters being put together in one big picture. Because I don't know, A, I don't know how much room I've got, and B, I don't know if they frown upon that overseas. But I want to still be able to make a difference when I'm over there. And even if it's like a 3-mile run or a 6-mile run for somebody that continues to give me a name, I'm going to keep doing it. And when I come back, then I'll probably run it again, whether it be, whether I've got, 10 names or, 500 names. I'm going to do it again when I come back.
Sure.
So it's a different way of doing it, but I still want to do it for those because it's going to be a way to help others, and at the same way, something different that I've yet to do.
Sure.
So that's kind of like my plan, is to just do what I can to help others and just do it differently. And so I've just got to figure out the logistics as to, putting all the pictures together and doing it that way. So that's kind of my plan. And
Okay.
I'm just going to keep doing the names as long as I can. And, if I hit 1,000 names, if I hit 2,000 names, I'm just going to keep going until I can't do anymore or I run out of names. And so,
Right.
And I'm still going to mix it up. I'm still going to mix, positive words with names. And so that's what makes it fun, is like each route, each day, it's not the same route.
Mm-hmm.
It's something completely different. And so those that just go out and run every day, run the 2 miles, run the 3 miles, they get bored with what they run.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas me, I go out every day and I'll go and just run this, and then I'll run a different route. And that's the joy of it, because it's like 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles here. And so like last year, I had back-to-back half marathons on consecutive weekends like I do now,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not really doing the official training for it. I'll go out and run. Like yesterday, I ran 5.5 miles doing 2 names. The day before, I think it was like 5.75 miles. So the weird thing is that when you run a name, you're concentrating on what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
My pace may be slower. My pace may be like an 8 to a 9 minute pace, whereas when I just go do a race, it's anywhere from a 7.5 to an 8.5 minute pace. So you just let the music carry you. So you're not really sketching during a race. You're actually going out and running and letting the music take you. And so that's kind of like the weird thing, is like I had 3 consecutive personal best records, and I don't even know how to explain it, because I just let the music take me.
Sure.
And so it's just like, okay.
You get lost, and all of a sudden you're there. And
Exactly.
okay, so how do people get a hold of you? What you have Facebook, Twitter, all of that good stuff.
Okay, so they can reach me on Facebook. I've got the public page is #human Etch-A-Sketch, all one word. Or they can reach out to me, Rik Zortman, R-I-K, and then ZORTMAN on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, it's PackerFan 1973. And the same goes for Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to submit a name and they want to put a story with it, and they don't want it to go out there, they can just go to the website runforarmstrong.com, and they can submit a name that way. They can submit a story. However they want to reach me, they can. And if I've ran the name, I'll submit it to you right away. If I haven't, I just put it on the list, and I put whoever submitted it next to it, so that way when I do run it, I have it right there. I have, okay, so who submitted it, how they submitted it, and how I can reach them when I'm done running it.
And for our listeners, this episode will actually air or go out after you've done the Garmin Marathon this upcoming weekend for us, which would be last weekend for the listeners listening, live. So by then, how soon of a turnaround might you have something on your social media sites for the walk you're going to do?
Actually, the walk that I'm going to do, I'm going to post right away.
Okay.
I've actually already walked it. I had to walk it twice to make sure the letters are spaced out.
Sure.
The surprise has already been taken care of. It's a framed 8x10 of the name.
Okay.
And so I'm going down on Friday, and I'm going to chalk it out, the whole name, in the parking lot. I'm going to walk it one more time, chalk it out, so that way those that show up, they're like, here's where we start, here's where we finish. You just kind of follow the arrows, let your Garmin follow you wherever you want to go, some people might be disappointed because they really wanted to run, but it's in a parking lot.
Sure.
And so normally if I were to run this name, it would take like 1.5 miles, almost 2 miles to run. But by walking it in the parking lot, it's like not even 0.6 of a mile.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it's like, well, the race is Saturday. You're not really overextending yourself.
Sure.
You're not going to hurt yourself. If you walk it, it's going to take maybe 10 minutes. It shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes. If it takes you more than 10 minutes, then there's something wrong.
But it's going to be one of those things that the child and the family remembers forever. So.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll talk after.
Sure.
After it happens. We'll talk before, and they're more than welcome to join us as well. They've got that option as well. But
sure,
it's just going to mean a lot to personalize this. So I'll actually have the girl's face there, and of course we'll probably do pictures afterwards.
Sure.
And that'll be included. But yeah, it's going to be a great night. And those that are going to Kansas City for the event, you know, they're more than welcome. If you're not signed up for the race, you don't have to sign up for the race. You can just show up Friday and be like, hey, this is kind of something cool. You can see what I do for a living in my part-time work. But definitely we just kind of go from there.
Well, Rick, I appreciate your time today. I really do, and you are doing great things, so we really appreciate it. You can find Rick on social media, Instagram and Twitter at PackerFan1973, and on Facebook, hashtag Human Etch-A-Sketch, all one, as well as personal page Rik, R-I-K, Zortman, on Facebook, and of course the website run4armstrong.com. Thank you, Rick. I really do appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much.
I want to make a quick correction here after I got off the line with Rick. We realized that his Instagram is actually different. It's PackerFan73, and the Twitter is PackerFan1973. So just a quick correction there. Again, thanks, Rick, for all you're doing, and keep on running, man.
All right, so
wow,
thank you to Rick. Yeah. So if again, contact him, and he actually, when we recorded that, I had mentioned in the podcast he was heading down to Olathe, Kansas to run a half marathon. He did that. If you weren't checking his social media at the time, go back to it now, and you can see everything he did in the parking lot for that family, and other things as well. I believe earlier this week, that we're again Thursdays today. Earlier this week, he was in Memphis, Tennessee, and he got asked to do live TV with one of their news stations.
Cool.
And so he's getting the word out, and you can find him and contact him and help out, raise awareness for pediatric cancer and everything else. So, Rick, great job, and keep doing what you're doing.
Definitely a goosebump moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. That's it.
Right.
We're done with this episode. We're at 48 minutes already.
That's amazing.
And so thank you for listening. We'll be back in 2 more weeks with episode 115. And everybody out there,
happy trails.
Happy trails to you until